Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
how's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And I have something very special to show today. Today we're going to be looking at the Folio Society's Marvel Unforgettable Stories. These are curated by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. So let's go ahead and take a look at what they chose to put in this book. Alright, before getting started, a big thank you to the folks at the Folio Society for sending us a copy of this slipcase edition. And this book is now, it has been released, it came out towards the end of November. And I will leave a link in the description of the video where you can purchase it directly from the Folio Society. I do believe the signed edition is completely sold out. So it does come in its slipcase right here, which we'll look at. So you have the X-Men logo, the Captain America shield, the Spider-Man logo, Hawkeye, Daredevil, and Fantastic Four. There's a few more stories in here than just these characters, though, and curated by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. And the inside of the slipcase right here. And this isn't the only time that the Folio Society has done a Marvel book. They've done other books in the past. They've done books like the Marvel Silver Age, they've done the Avengers, they've done Doctor Strange, and Black Panther, and Thor, just different runs. But this one is different because these are a selection of 10 stories that are curated by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. You have a cover here by Marcos Martin, and it is a wraparound cover, although you do have a spine right there. Unforgettable Stories, Folio Society logo, and the Marvel logo up there. And I do love the fact that the cover showcases most of the stories that are going to be collected in here. Although, in this story, Wolverine didn't have that outfit. But that's neither here nor there. So let's actually talk about the book itself. Like, let's look at the design of the book by Marcos Martin. And then, of course, you've got Unforgettable Stories, curated by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. Well, I believe they probably met, or just assuming here, or maybe they've been friends for a long time. It does have a flat spine. But I remember the MODOK show that they had. Jordan Blum comes from, like, American Dad. And that particular MODOK show that was on. But he's also worked on Community and stories like that. And right now they're working on Minor Threats being published by Dark Horse. It is sewn binding. And there's the eye. And again, a flat spine. So in case you're wondering the size of the book, I do have a Marvel Masterworks, which is the size of a standard size hardcover. And it is just a little bit taller than that of, there we go, so you can get a better idea. It's a little bit taller than the Marvel Masterwork. But we are going to be cracking the book open, checking out the 10 stories that they put in here. And probably, I'll do a comparison to other editions that these stories have been reprinted in. So you can get an idea of how the scans look here. Okay, let's go ahead and get the book open. You have some red end sheets. One of the things I didn't note is that this is, I guess it's not embossed. It's debossed, I guess, the opposite. Just this part right here. Not the spine. And, of course, not the back, because that's just the image, the art on board. Yes, red end sheets. And then you have Marvel Unforgettable Stories. Curated by Jordan Blum and Patton Oswalt, Folio Society, London, 2024. And then another piece here, which is the back piece and the front piece put together here by Marcos Martin. And it does state the comics reproduced here were originally published by Marvel. The images for this edition have been supplied by Marvel with additional scans provided by Corey Settlemeyer, for which the publishers offer their thanks. Corey, of course, being the big editor that has done a lot of the curation for Marvel, specifically your table of contents here. Things like the Marvel Masterwork line, or think of any classic stuff, he's usually the one behind it. And where you're going to find each of these issues, you have an introduction here from Patton Oswalt, talking about how this project came to be with Jordan Blum. And I do have to ask, like, I would love to interview both of them. Did they ever argue, like, okay, we cannot choose the final chapter? That's a ridiculous choice for Spider-Man. There's so many better issues. Or Wolf, like the Wounded Wolf. Oh man, choosing a X-Men comic would have been so hard for me, and especially if I'm working with someone else. So what the introduction does, it tells you, a little bit about how this came to be, and he even tells you right here. You're going to be yelling like, how could you not add this? How did you not include this? How could you forget this issue? And he's like, let me just save you your vocal cords, the stress. You're right. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're going to say that. I think that goes for anybody. It could be Stan Lee choosing his 10 favorite stories. It could be Jack Kirby choosing his own favorite stories, or Steve Ditko. You're always going to get a difference of opinion. I like curations like this. I think it's really cool because it shows why they chose it. Like, I'll give you an example here. I'm not going to talk in depth about each issue because I'm sure some of these I've already talked about to death. But for example, like when I was flipping through here, they give you a quick introduction as to why they decided to choose, like Captain America, for example. This is a Mark Gruenwald and Kieran Dwyer story, but it's from Acts of Vengeance. And when I think of Mark Gruenwald, I was like, why not the Captain? Why not stories like the one where the annual where he fights Wolverine? Then I think, wait, those are my favorite stories. How do you encompass a man's career, like 10 years of Captain America? By the way, great choice. A lot of people probably would have gone with Captain America by Ed Brubaker, but I salute them for choosing something from Mark Gruenwald's run, my favorite run, so I'm a little biased. X Factor, absolutely. 87, oh my gosh. But then I get over here yes, so there's a choice from Untold Tales of Spider-Man that I was like, okay, interesting, instead of Spectacular, or instead of another title, for example, because you're only given 10 books, or the one from Spider-Man Tangled Web. So I'll be honest, I hadn't read that Tangled Web issue in over a decade, and then I'm like, I wonder why they chose it. So I didn't even read the decision why it was made. I went to this book and I read it, or the issue, and I thought, okay, I can see why it was added. It is a really important book. But then they tell you exactly why it was chosen, and then thanks to you for going on this 40-year journey. Oh, dude, I was reading, yes, right here, Wings of Hatred. This is the story of the Vulture from Tangled Web, or no, from Untold Tales of Spider-Man, which we'll get to here in a second, by the way. But then he talks about, the story stayed with him since he read it 27 years ago. And I said, 27? And then he wrote, 27? Good Lord. Yeah, same reaction. How did that happen, man? Oh, dude. Okay, so the issues are broken up by a title page, The Amazing Spider-Man, the final chapter, The Amazing Spider-Man, number 33, February of 1966. One of my top 10 favorite Spider-Man issues. One of the greatest, right? If This Be My Destiny, Spider-Man just getting crushed by the weight of this and thinking of all the people that he failed, and then of course just rising above it all, because that's what Spider-Man does. And all of it collected in here, the entire issue. None of the house ads or anything like that. I'll talk about the build here in a little bit. What a choice here with Daredevil, because when most people think of Daredevil, they probably think, okay, Elektra, but this story starts off dark, and it is in the aftermath of the big classic Elektra stories. Wounded Wolf from issue 205. Oh my gosh, yeah. What a phenomenal story by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor-Smith. One thing you're going to note is that there is no credits. Right? There's no credits for the issues. They just leave it up to the actual comic to tell you who the creators were. The copyright stuff is all down here at the bottom. These look like they were just scanned. They're not reconstructed or touched up or built from scratch or from the pencils or inks. They're just scans of the actual comic. So, for example, this is Wounded Wolf. Oh, Barry Windsor-Smith kills it here. But Chris Claremont does the story. Or the script. Barry Windsor-Smith wrote the story, co-plotted it, and then does the art and color, and then you've got the letters and editors down there. But What a phenomenal story. This is the one I was talking about from Acts of Vengeance, but it makes sense, right? Especially if you know the character of Magneto and what the Red Skull is. During Acts of Vengeance, it's the whole shakeup of the Marvel villains. Like, okay, you go and fight Namor. You go and fight Wolverine. I'm tired of getting my butt beat by Spider-Man, so why don't you handle him? It's stories like that. Issue 87 is Examinations of X-Factor. Oh, the story that made a lot of us a fan of Pietro, Quicksilver, because a lot of us were like, man, Quicksilver's such an a-hole. Like, I hate that character. But within just a couple pages, Peter David was able to make us a fan. A better understanding of why he is the way he is. And oh my gosh. He actually did a follow-up to this in his second X-Factor investigation series. Polaris and her, what is her weight problem. Strong Guy's origin, Multiple Man. Oh my gosh, just like a deep look into each of these characters. The only problem with a book like this is that it will spoil some things for you, especially if you're reading like not really X Factor by Peter David, but later on when you're reading like Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, because there's one big storyline in here, and I completely agree with the issue they chose for Fantastic Four from Jonathan Hickman's run. This is a deep character study of the Vulture, and it's all about letting go of the past. Like, how do you stop holding on to a grudge? I think it's a beautiful story. Now, if you don't know anything about Untold Tales of Spider-Man, they all take place in between issues of Amazing Spider-Man in the Silver Age. And it was all done in the 90s. And the covers include the only 99 cents, by the way. I love that they did that. Like, right here. Yeah, they kept it all intact, the lettering, the everything. Yes, love it. But this is a story about letting go of hatred. And I think it's so good because the way Spider-Man defeats the Vulture is unique and makes Spider-Man who he is. Love it. Love that, man. Great choice, but also difficult, right? Like, if you're only given 10, why a retro series? And then this right here, oh my gosh, Tangled Web. I haven't thought about this in a long time. It's been over a decade since I read this. And it is a story by Greg Rucka, Eduardo Rizzo doing the artwork. And it's all about this character of, I think, is it Tom Croker, if I'm not mistaken? I think that's his character's name. I just read it last night. Oh, Cochrane, that's what it is. Who works for the Kingpin, and his wife answers the phone, and his buddy Brian, who also works for the Kingpin, is telling him the bad news, turn on the TV, and apparently they messed up. So Tom has been working for the Kingpin for 20 years, and knows what messing up means if you work for the Kingpin. And man, this is a dark story, because he's sitting here with his wife and she's like, you don't have to do this, let's run away. And he just dresses in his new Armani. He knows what he has to do. You know, there's maybe the thoughts of perhaps suicide here. But no, he faces the Kingpin because he knows he messed up and he knew what he was signing up for. They knew what they were signing up for 20 years ago. Runaways #1. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know if I would have made it in mine, but Brian K. Vaughan sure knows how to hook you with the ending of this one. And then the Fantastic Four story right here. This is the big one in the Negative Zone where a huge battle takes place. And, oh, the sacrifice and, dude, flame on. Oh, it's so good. But again, it's kind of the payoff of like a lot of the buildup that's happening. Hawkeye, issue #11, Pizza Dog. That's right, it's the buddy story. Matt Fraction and David Aja. Matt Hollingsworth, and yes, it's all told through the perspective of Buddy, the pizza dog, and him just trying to let people know that there's someone hurt. And how does he do that if he can't speak? Oh my gosh, if you haven't read this, it is freaking brilliant. And I believe they ended with just that issue. There's no afterwards or anything, and then your end sheets. So let's look at the build really quick of this. The book has 280 pages. And printed in glossy paper stock. The slipcase edition, I believe this one is $100, and then there's a signed edition, but I think that one is out of print. One of the things you probably notice as I'm flipping through here is this black border. So they're putting a black border around the actual comic book pages. And the black border is throughout the entirety of the book, whether it's Silver Age or whether it's Bronze Age or stuff from the, I guess No, I'll call it modern. Modern, right? Please tell me this is modern. Modern era. Fantastic Four. So everything has a black border around it, and all the way to the end. And printed in glossy paper stock, and it is using the scans with nothing retouched. But let's actually compare. Let's go with Spider-Man right here, because I have the latest printing of the Omnibus. Let me just zoom out a little bit. The latest printing of the Omnibus uses the latest scans. So again, this artwork has been restored, and let's get to issue with 33. So keep in mind, this is going to look bigger too, so please ignore that. So for example, here's the first page. Ignore the size, just pay attention to the way the scan looks, right? This is the way that the paper stock would have looked, the yellowing and all that. And then this is the way the restored artwork looks here, because they're printing it in thick, glossy paper stock. We've seen collections like this from like Taschen. They're using this like faux what's called the faux newsprint type of paper. There we go. That's what I wanted to compare. Again, this might be the way you remember it, and this is the way it's been restored. Now, let's compare. That's Silver Age. Let's go to actually, let's look at the last story. So again, the size is different. It's a little bit smaller, and this actually has the whole trade dress there, right? Like the actual logo, whereas this doesn't. This is just the actual scan of the cover, but this actually has like the intro page. Oh, and even I forgot to mention like something like the Fantastic Four, in case you're lost, because it is like a part 3, I think. No, 3 part 5. It kind of gives you a recap as to what's happened previously. So that page is there, and then we get to the actual book. So the scans itself, because these were, probably had digital copies, they look smooth. This, by the way, is printed in really thick, glossy paper stock. So that is the difference here. Let's look at, this is adorable. Yeah. Let's look at the next page right here, and that's all I will show. So, yep. Just a little bit bigger is about the only thing, and then, of course, the border around it. But that is the first book. I would love to see more of these. I'd love to see other people, like, make their own top 10. Like, if you're watching this, what would you have put in your top 10? And yeah, and then also, what kind of paper stock would you have used? Because you have to find that balance, right? It can't all be newsprint or matte paper, because then you have things in the back that I think look better with glossy paper stock. That, as they say, is that. Now, I have left a link in the description of the video where you can purchase the book in case you are interested in purchasing this slipcase edition. And that was it. That's what was in here. That's what the slipcase looks like, the build of the book. And this really started like the gears turning in my head. What would I choose to be in my own Marvel Unforgettable Stories? And then, of course, I thought about DC. Like, it's such a hard task. I mean, already in my head, I'm like, oh, this, and this, and this. But I think it's a lot harder than I thought. Maybe we can do like a show, a live stream where we pick our own 10 and curate our own. That would be fun instead of like doing a evergreen. But anyway, just ideas. If you have any questions, leave them down below. What you would have added, what you think did not belong on this list. I know nobody really likes to hear that, but I do like to hear other people's opinions. And again, a big thank you to all you wonderful patrons for making videos like this possible. Could not be doing this without you all. That's it, everyone. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.